It is my pleasure to welcome to the stage Hanna Veiler, President of the European Union of Jewish Students. Hanna, over to you.
Dear Commissioner Brunner, dear Vice President Picerno, dear Katharina von Schnurbein, dear Mr. Theokaros, dear Mr. Garwood, dear colleagues and friends. Today we gather to remember, but remembrance is not a passive act. It is not only about looking back at history. It is about confronting what was taken from the world and understanding what that loss demands from us today. The Shoah is not only the murder of 6 million Jews. It is a rupture in history and an eternal void in the history of the Jewish people. And every conversation about the Shoah has to start with the acknowledgement that this void can never be repaired. Because entire worlds were erased. Languages, traditions, songs, humor, families, and futures. Entire neighborhoods, schools, cafes, synagogue, youth movements vanished, often without leaving a trace behind, often without leaving anyone behind to remember them. Places that were once full of Jewish life became silent. That silence has never been neutral. A void never stays empty on its own. If it is not actively filled with truth, memory, and responsibility, it risks being filled with distortion, denial, and hatred. For those who survived, the void was not abstract. It was present in every empty chair, every unanswered question, every name that was never spoken again. For their children and grandchildren, like my generation, it remains present in different ways, but no less real. And yet, despite the irreparable loss, Jewish life did not end, it continued. Often quietly, often painfully, often with fear, but persistently. Jewish communities across Europe chose life again and again in places where life has been declared impossible. Every time a Jewish child in Europe is born, that void is challenged. Every Shabbat candle lit, every prayer whispered, every song sung, every student union built, every community meal shared, every moment of Jewish joy, that is how we live with the absence without surrendering to it. We do not fill the void by pretending that the past can be restored. We know it cannot. What was destroyed cannot be rebuilt as it was, but we fill it by choosing life, by refusing to allow destructions to have the final word, by insisting that Jewish life is not a footnote on European history, but a living, breathing part of its past, present, and future. This is not only a Jewish task, and it never was. Holocaust remembrance is a collective responsibility, not because guilt can be inherited, but because responsibility must be shared. The Shoah did not begin with gas chambers. It began with words. It began with indifference of your neighbors and friends and colleagues, with institutions that fail protecting democracy, and with a society that not only passively accepted the unacceptable, but actively contributed to it and also enriched itself through persecution and murder. That is why remembrance cannot be confined to one day a year. It must be active. It must be uncomfortable at times. It must be challenged to ask what we do when the affected communities are dehumanized, when history is manipulated and violence is executed. And today, that question is painfully relevant. Across Europe and far beyond it, we hear voices once again calling for our eradication. Voices that deny the Holocaust, relativize it, instrumentalize it, or openly celebrate violence against Jews. Voices that try to disguise hatred as political critique or as moral righteousness. Voices that seek not only to attack Jewish life today, but to deepen the void that the Holocaust already created. This is not happening in a vacuum. It thrives when memory weakens, where education is neglected, where silence returns. I am speaking in the name of the young Jews in Europe. We are a generation that grew up believing that remembrance was a shared European value, that the lessons of the past were understood, that never again meant something solid. Today, many of us feel that promise being tested, and yet we are still here and we will never let them win. We cannot let them win, because this has never only been about us. It is about those who came before us, those who sacrificed everything, who resisted in ways both visible and invisible, those who survived and rebuilt with almost nothing, and those who did not survive, those whose names were erased, whose graves are unknown, and whose lives ended without farewell. It is about the responsibility we carry toward their memory, not as a burden that paralyzes us, but a commitment that gives us meaning to our actions. We owe them more than remembrance ceremonies. We owe them courage when it is easier to stay quiet. We owe them continuity when fear tells us to disappear. We owe them presence in spaces where we are told we do not belong. No matter how complicated it becomes, we owe them to continue fighting and building and educating and spreading Jewish joy and being Jewish openly, proudly, and unapologetically. Filling the silence left by the Holocaust is not about replacing what was lost. It is about refusing to abandon the space it left behind to hatred, lies, or indifference. Remembrance is action, memory is responsibility. And Jewish life, lived fully and visibly, is the answer. Thank you.